departments, which has become so severe that the INMO and nurses in emergency departments have been forced into industrial action. Look at the utter chaos of 5,000 women, men and children living in emergency accommodation. And these scandals aren't just because of the incompetence of your government, though that undoubtedly is a fact. It isn't just because of your reliance on half-actions and spin. Let's be straight about this, Taoiseach. It's because you're against a universal health service. It's because you're against the state making provision of social and affordable housing. And it's because you're against holding the golden circles to account. And that, Taoiseach, is why you made a mess of the Commission of Investigation's terms of reference and dismissed Sinn Féin's amendments and suggestions. That's why you blocked and stonewalled any effort to bring transparency to the actions and transactions undertaken by the IBRC. And billions of taxpayers' money was written off or found its way into the deep pockets of the elite. And Taoiseach, this is money that could have been invested in social housing. This is money that could have been invested into our health services. But, as I've just said, you and your government have no real interest in shining a light on the IBRC transactions. We got a letter, Concolia, from the Taoiseach, which I have responded to last evening when he asked the opposition parties for our views on new terms of reference. So I want to ask you, Taoiseach, will you now accept responsibility for this mess? Will you publish the terms of reference that were brought forward by your Attorney-General and approved by you? And will you at least belatedly try and unravel a mess which is entirely of your own making?
Well, you've circled all the issues today, Deputy Adams. Not your usual specific attack. You mentioned about that the government have failed to deal with the big issues, like fixing the economic mess that we inherited, like putting our people back to work, Deputy Adams, like the situation where unemployment has gone from 15.2 down to 8.9 and heading downwards in the right direction. Like a situation where this crowd blocked us out from all the markets, and the interest rates were 15% and now they're less than 2%. And Minister Noonan's intention on behalf of the government is to have our deficit wiped out by 2018. Our national debt is falling rapidly towards European norms, and by the way, Deputy Adams, 130,000 jobs have been created by the private sector. These are the big things that you say the government have failed on. But we're not happy. We're not happy, Deputy Adams. We're not happy. Because what we want to do is to secure that recovery for all our people and have a strong economy for the benefit of the people. Now, you mentioned about golden circles and you mentioned about... But I'd like to say to you, first of all, Deputy Adams, you have responded to the letter that I sent you. And I thank you for responding to me. The common objective of everybody in this House here, of all parties and none, is to have a situation where the intention of what the government did when they set up the Commission of Investigation under Justice Cregan is to have a transparent, comprehensive, fully accountable report in respect of all of the transactions in regard to which a write-off of over 10 million was involved. And that's the intention of government and you and everybody else. And I thank you for your letter. But I'd make this point to you. When we put through a decision here to have a Commission of Investigation, neither you nor anybody else raised the questions that the Justice has pointed out in his interim report. And that's why I sent it to you at an early date. That's why I sent it to you as soon as I could. That's why I sent it to the other leaders of the different groupings. I asked them for their written response because it's in everybody's interest. Now, I've got yours. I haven't got Fianna Fáil's. Whether they have a view or not, I don't know. And I haven't got one from Deputy Murphy's is on the way. Thank you, Deputy Murphy. The government will receive those responses in writing from you. We will consider those responses and we'll have a report at government next week. as to how best we should proceed to deal with the issues that Justice Cregan has raised in his interim report to Concordia. Let me repeat again, it is the intention of government to have a fully transparent, accountable and comprehensive report in everybody's interests on the site serve issue and on the other. The Justice has pointed out what he considers are difficulties and problems. We want to deal with those in the most transparent, most accountable way possible. Thank you for your letter. Deputy Murphy's is on the way. I'll await Deputy Martin's response.
Thank you. Deputy Adams, thank you.
The reason why you make a mess of things, Taoiseach, is characterised by your response. You failed, you refused to answer the questions. You know, we made amendments to you in relation to your terms of reference. You voted them down. We ended up voting against your terms of reference because they were inadequate. Since 2012, Catherine Murphy, Pearse Doherty, myself have raised questions about site serve. That's 3 years. Mr Noonan and yourself blocked it, prevaricated, sent obtuse, opaque answers, refused to deal with the issues involved. So, the questions again, will you publish the AG's advice? Will you commit to dealing with this issue before Christmas? And one of the big omissions in the Commission's terms of reference relates to the lack of clarity surrounding the definition of a capital loss. So, Ceisteanna, we have this ridiculous situation that the capital loss is defined by the liquidators of the IBRC themselves. They define what Judge Cregan could look at, and he acknowledges that there are upwards of 156 transactions where losses in loans in excess of 10 million were recorded by IBRC during the relevant period.
Thank you.
But are not included in the schedule of transactions because the special liquidators defined it otherwise. Now, this equates to at the very least, £1.5 billion of taxpayers' money which could have been used to build homes or to fix our health services. And these aren't even going to be investigated by the Commission. So you thank me for my letter. Will you act on the recommendations?
Well, I thank you if you adhere to chair over your time.
Okay, fair enough, Ceisteanna. Well, will you correct these glaring omissions? Will you commit to giving an assurance that all the necessary changes to legislation and to the IBRC's Commission's terms of reference will be put in place by Christmas? And will you commit to facilitating extended or additional sitting days of the Dáil and the Seanad to do that, as opposed to kicking it beyond the election?
Thank you. Taoiseach.
First of all, I want to say to you, Deputy Adams, that commissions of investigation, once they're approved by the Oireachtas here, become the responsibility of the sole member appointed to conduct those commissions of investigation, and they do so in an entirely independent manner. Now, in this case, Justice Cregan has done some considerable work, and he has identified from his perspective what he considers to be obstacles, difficulties and challenges, and he has written his interim report, which I have forwarded to the members. My letter to you and to the others was to say, what is your view now of the action that should be taken to deal with the issues pointed out by the sole member? And I do that in the interests of everybody, in that government want a situation where Site Serve and the others are part of the Commission of Investigation in a fully accountable, transparent and comprehensive fashion, because that's in everybody's interest. But the Justice has pointed out, and he has taken his line individually and objectively and independently in respect of confidentiality, in respect of privacy, in respect of other issues that he's pointed out there. So what we need to do is to be able to respond to that in a way that makes this work effectively. Now, the Justice did point, I'm responding to your question, the Justice did point out that if he's left to deal with this on his own, it could take 8 years. Do you want that? Can we have a situation where we can have a much more effective and more swift response? So the government will respond to this, taking into account the views of your letter and the others, and we will respond to that next week. Now, I think that it's also necessary to say, I'd like to see that whatever structure can be put in place to deal with it could be put in place as quickly as possible, and if it's necessary to have the support of the House for extra time, I'm sure that's a matter that can be considered. So again, thank you for your letter. Will I act on your recommendations? I'll certainly consider the points that you make. I have a duty to do that, and the government will respond collectively when we receive the written responses of the other leaders.
Deputy?
No, I won't publish the AG's advice. The Justice, in his complete independence, has sent his interim report, and he has pointed out what he considers are real challenges here. We need to find a way of dealing with that as a response from the Oireachtas.
Thank you.